This video covers an overview of the processes and workflow design capabilities of IBM Control Desk. In the first part of the demo, we will show the best practice content included with IBM Control Desk, including the out-of-the-box idle-align processes. To help its customers reduce implementation time and achieve a quick time to value, IBM Control Desk includes a set of best practices called Process Content Packs. Process Content Packs are included free of charge and include the following processes: Service Catalog, Service Desk including Service Request, Incident, and Problem, Change Management, IT Hardware Asset Management, and Software Asset Management. Each content pack includes IBM best practice data to support a process from end to end. The data includes roles, dashboards, workflows, automated tasks and processes, communication templates, classifications, and KPIs. Customers are simply able to add their users to the predefined roles and go. Of course, many will also tailor our best practices to their specific business culture and needs. Next, we'll show some of the process workflows that are provided by IBM. The first one guides the incident process. This workflow ensures the incident has the proper data, then prompts the user if they want to take ownership of the ticket, assign it, or create follow-on records like a problem or change. If they take ownership, they are guided through the resolution process to search for existing tickets or known errors, search for solutions in the knowledge base, and finally resolve the issue. We'll see this process in action later in the demo. The next process is the service request process. Like the incident process, it guides the user through how to properly resolve a service request, ensuring the required data is captured. This is the IBM IDLE workflow for change management. It guides the process through all of the change phases, including assessing the change, scheduling the change, authorizing, and implementation. It is built on many additional sub-processes, like this one for change assessment, and shows how processes can be directly linked. Let's see some of the Process Content Pack best practice data in action. First, let's start by adding a new user, Nancy, to some of our Service Desk roles. This is done in the Security Groups module. As Nancy logs in, she can see the dashboards that have been provided for her two Service Desk roles. Nancy is going to create a new incident based on her phone call with Bob. She fills in the details of the incident and clicks Submit to create the ticket. The incident has been created and is under Workflow Process Control, as indicated in the toolbar. Nancy clicks on the Workflow button to see the next step. Instead of assigning the ticket, Nancy decides to take ownership and see if she can resolve the issue. The next step in the process is a search for existing tickets or known problems. Her search doesn't yield any results, so she advances in the workflow to search the knowledge base. After not finding any solutions, she decides she wants to get some additional information from Bob instead of rerouting the ticket. We can see that a communication has been created. She picks the proper template and sends her mail completing this execution of the workflow. This has demonstrated the usability and quality of the out-of-the-box best practice content and idle processes provided free of charge with IBM Control Desk. This content is used extensively throughout these demo videos. Next, we'll show more how the Workflow Designer can be used to modify process workflows, as well as how workflows can interact with the IT operations management tools. This workflow is the default approval workflow for obtaining a self-service user's line manager approval for a request from the service catalog. If the request is approved, the status of the request is changed to approved, and if it's rejected, the status is also changed to reflect that. This demonstration will show how easy it is to modify the workflow to include a second additional financial approval for requests over 500. First, the workflow is duplicated, as this is going to be a separate process. Next, we'll add in our new condition and new assignment nodes. action to change the status to approved is moved to the financial approver. We then add the remaining needed positive and negative connections to the workflow. Now that the workflow has its new nodes and connections, we can start making the final configuration. First, we'll name the condition node and use the expression builder to build and validate the test for the total amount of the request. Next, we'll modify the workflow assignment node for when the request is greater than 500. The task node is given a meaningful ID and description. The approval action is set up so that when any group member accepts, the workflow will move on. We could also use the radio buttons to configure this assignment such that all approvers are required to approve. Next, we add the IBM Finance group as the approving role. The last step is to give the proper status change on each of the connections. First, we'll add the action to reject the request for when the finance group does not approve. And finally, we'll give a meaningful description for when the manager approves the request. The workflow is now complete. The final step is to enable and activate the process. Creating workflow revisions is also very simple in IBM Control Desk. Let's change the approval threshold to 250. First, we need to create a new revision of the workflow. Any in-flight transactions using the current version of the workflow will be carried out using that version. Then we can just go to the condition node and change the 500 value to 250. After that, it's just a matter of saving and enabling, then activating this new revision. Any new use of this workflow will use the updated threshold. Workflow designers can go back to any previous branch of the workflow should they decide they don't want any of the changes that were made. It's just a matter of activating the appropriate process revision. This workflow shows the process that is used to drive the Enterprise App Store automated fulfillment. The bidirectional integration is carried out by actions in the workflow. One action contains an automation script that calls an IBM BigFix API to deploy a fixlet to the target asset. A second action receives the return code back from BigFix on the status of the install. This brief clip shows the process in action and is covered in more detail in the self-service video. We have now shown how to configure process workflows, as well as a workflow that can interface with external IT operations management tools and processes. Next, we'll cover the lifecycle and status of managed services. This is an example of a new service being created by the business to give users the ability to request an increase in their mail storage space. The details of the service include the classification, any approvals required, and any manual or automated tasks for how the service is fulfilled. In addition, this service can be tied to the broader business services that will be shown shortly. This tab shows any data that can be input by the user. Next, we'll show the natural lifecycle steps for this service. The lifecycle of a service is controlled through its status and can optionally be placed under workflow control. From its initial pending state, the service may transition to a planning state where it's ready for deployment. At this point, announcements or user education may take place. Next is on to the go live, making the service active and ready for users. As the service nears the end of its lifecycle, it can go to a pending obsolescence state before finally being retired and made obsolete. Each of these services can be related to a group, in this case IT, and a specific service like email support. Let's look at the IT group. We can see the list of services IT provides, like server deployment, security, email, network support, and application support. This module brings together the entire picture for services, where we can see things like the open tickets against these services, any ongoing work, contracts that apply, and configuration items that represent these services. We have now shown the service lifecycle in IBM Control Desk. Other than what was shown here, IBM Control Desk does not include additional processes for other standards such as ISO. However, with the easy-to-use Workflow Designer and out-of-the-box content, customers, IBM services, or IBM business partners can easily model those processes within an IBM Control Desk.